level up your hunting game and join the cause. Help preserve small-town Texas hunting culture and become a more successful hunter by learning the best ways to squeeze the most out of your budget and precious time out in the field. Welcome to the Bandit Podcast. Here are your resident bandits, Richard Kinchlow and Jimmy Byrne.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, faithful listeners of the Feed Bandit Podcast. Corn Bandit coming back at you with a solo podcast for you here today. Me and Mr. El Bandito himself have been super busy. I mean, after all, it is hunting season, right? So what good would we be if we're not out there logging actual field time? So wanted to do just a quick podcast for you guys, talking a little bit about the past couple weekends of dove hunting. You know, I know we're getting so close to the opening of rifle season in Texas, and of course, bow season in Texas is already underway, and hunting season and rifle and bow in some states is already going as well. But I feel that I am blessed and obviously in a way to be able to go out there and hunt as much as I do, especially when it comes to dove. And I think dove are one of the underhunted species in the country, really. So I like to do my part to talk about what I'm seeing out there in the field, and hopefully you all will be able to take some of the information and duplicate it on the place you hunt. So talk a little bit about that, and also I found a really cool article online from a source that we'll post here in the show notes, but just kind of a good general preparation article, kind of geared more towards, really bow hunters, obviously, but, also for rifle hunters, talking about some things you might want to consider before going out there and hopping in that blind on opening weekend of deer season. So we'll kind of touch on that article, and again, we'll post it down below as well. So first and foremost, want to get back to the dove hunting. We've said it a million times here on this show, and you've heard it elsewhere. But a lot of dove hunting is really done in the first couple of weeks of September, and then that's it. Everybody kind of hangs their gun ups. Now, of course, that's not everybody. Okay, and then you've got people like me who are the outlier. Okay, it's going back just to statistics at Texas Tech with Dr. Ronald Bremer. The only thing I learned in there was the term outlier. And I guess when it will come to dove hunting, I am the outlier. I mean, I will sit there and I will hunt them literally every single weekend until I cannot do it anymore. And kudos to the state of Texas for extending the season into, I think this is the second year in a row now. It actually goes into the second weekend of November, which I think is really, really cool. But, that being said, with, not a lot of dove hunting, coming from hunters really in the middle of September, it's certainly not a lot in October either. And I think it's a real shame, for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, God bless it, normally it's a lot cooler, right? That being said, yesterday was August, God, thank God it wasn't, October 11th, and it was a balmy 97 degrees at my daughter's 4 o'clock soccer game. So it was kind of funny. Everybody was trying to dress like it was fall, but it clearly felt like it was summer. But most of the time, obviously, those October dove hunts are just darn pleasant, to be honest with you. The other thing is you can also get a lot of good hunting in. But by that time, we have definitely had multiple cold fronts have blown through the area, and as we've always talked about, what those cold fronts always bring good surprises, okay? And they're going to bring you more migratory birds. If you're like me and you just like being outside, which of course we hope you are like me, and just love being outside, it brings in monarch butterflies too, something to kind of pass the time when you're waiting on the next bird to come by. And then, of course, for all the avid waterfowlers out there, which I am too, also brings in fresh loads of ducks and geese and cranes and all that kind of good stuff, which in Texas we really can't touch until first weekend of November. But it's good for them to come on in, get comfortable, enjoy life, swimming on their back, feeding on duckweed, and so that when they show up on that opening morning, it's a nasty surprise. So with all that being said, wanted to talk about the last couple of weekends of kind of the Texas dove season. So this would really be the first and second weekend, and I guess the third weekend. Is that right? Did I carry the one? I can never remember. Yeah. Okay. So no, it would have been the second to last weekend, or no, but the last weekend of September, first weekend of October, and then last weekend. So we're going to talk about the last 3 weekends because it is incredible how things can really change. Okay, so here we go. The last weekend of September. All right, so let's talk about the setting. Let's talk about what's going on. Okay, well, first and foremost, you all remember, if you listen to the show, we had how many inches of rain did we have? About 14 to 16 inches of rain on September 2nd. I remember that because my father had a great dove hunt that night, opening day. Next morning, since we hunted over water, was or the next day rather, complete washout, and really so was the majority of September. Because again, we are hunting over water. That is our primary ambush site. And when you got puddles and you got streams, as long as they're out in the open and they kind of meet their needs, as far as safety is concerned, those dove will just assume land there, as they would at our frac tank. So September was really frustrating. Well, guess what? The end of September, first weekend of October were freaking outstanding. So let's talk about it. Again, dry climate, okay, hadn't had any rain to speak of, but we had some significant cold fronts. When I say significant, I put those in little air quotes because, we're talking about we were in the 80s and then it dropped the high into 74, okay, and just barely scraped the upper 50s, 59, on some thermometers, more like really the low 60s. So definitely cool enough to feel like fall here in Texas, and certainly the birds were. So we'll so that Friday of that first of that second weekend, excuse me, the last weekend of September rather, we show up a little bit early. Typically when you're hunting tanks, it's the hunting water source really, the birds are typically going to hit that last before they go to roost. That's just kind of what they do. And that's always been my experience. Hey, with white wings or different parts of Texas, it could be different, but everywhere I've hunted, that's always been, my experience. So, I just assumed, I knew we had some fronts in, knew it's been dry, figured, man, we got to have some birds in the area. And I was right. So we pull up to our normal spot, the frac tank, as you've heard us say a million times. And, we go to drop off our first person at his site, and lo and behold, we got 5 or 6 birds bust out of the tree. And I'm thinking, man, oh man, that is great. Birds of feather flock together, and that is definitely the case when it comes to migratory dove. You see when you don't really see onesie twosies like you do locals, okay, dove that kind of born and raised there, if you will. It's typically in groups, and that certainly played out to be true last couple of weekends. So we saw that. It was really exciting. That was approximately 3:45, 3:50, something. I know it's crazy. I can remember that time. But so again, we're there a little bit early. Typically they're going to come in. The activity really starts to pick up towards dark, and then normally with migratory birds, you get kind of a big boom, right at shooting light or just after, and then all heck breaks out. But a lot of times it's too late and you just got to watch them. So we pull up, and really the action was relatively steady throughout the entire evening, which was just great. And again, we had groups of, pairs really. Okay. Twos and fours and sixes and eights coming in, occasionally a single here and there, but it was a phenomenal hunt. And again, they were keying on that water, and we did extremely well. Went back there the second evening and didn't do as good, but still had a great shoot. And it's tough to shoot water 2 times in a row. It's the same water 2 times in a row. And typically during the first couple weeks of the season, I won't do it. I will rest it because I know that, we haven't had any new influxes of birds. I don't want to be re-educating somebody that I shot at, the night before and missed, because you shoot at them again, chances are they could be gone. They could be gone that first time you shoot them and miss them. So, but during when they're the migratories, there's so many of them sometimes that, I'll hunt a tank twice. So, let me tell you what a great hunt. Okay. 2 great hunts. on this last week of teal season 2, and that stunk, but that was disappointing. But the dove hunting was great. Couldn't have been happier. So fast forward to the first weekend of October. Okay, here we go again. No rain. Okay, same basic conditions. Actually, it's going to be a little bit warmer this time, but we actually have had one or two little, these little micro fronts, whereas in the panhandle of Texas, it gets down to it's in the 40s, and by the time it gets here, it's really kind of petered out. It's nothing to get too excited about, but it still felt good, and I knew it was still going to bring in birds. Well, here we go. Same thing. This time we get there a little early. Friday of the last weekend of October, we end up getting there probably about 3:30, and the trees are loaded with dove. It's pretty exciting. So we were cautiously optimistic. Actually, a good friend of mine coming in from the west, he actually stopped by the tank on the way to the house and saw a bunch of birds that were already working in. This was noon, so we knew we were in for a really good hunt. So and of course it didn't disappoint. We absolutely we tore them up. We absolutely tore them up. Now, we always talk about migratories and their kind of their routine of just hitting these tanks, really at the last light. Okay. And then Jimmy, my co-host, obviously has mentioned it many a times, and he's right. That's typically the way it works. The weekend before, I didn't mention this, but we did get a pretty big boom about 6:30 or so, and shooting light wasn't until 7:30. So naturally we waited until shooting light that weekend to see if we could get anything else, and it really just kind of died down. Well, polar opposite this weekend. Had some decent shooting, and did very well. In fact, I think I was at like 13 birds, something like that, and obviously was just tickled to death. And then, literally, 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes before legal shooting light, the skies erupted. And it was unbelievable. And to set the kind of the stage for we had been there again since 3:30, obviously pretty early, and had some shots. We definitely had some shots, but a lot of the birds were avoiding the tank. I mean, you could see them out there. We were talking to each other. We have a guy who's positioned on a hill, overlooking the tank, but he can also look out there in the field, and he can see all these doves just flying, I guess literally from south to north. And they were landing, and they were landing in these trees to where we couldn't see them. They were, a quarter mile, half mile away, something like that. So I'd say a quarter mile away. So we knew they were there, and really the whole evening we'd have some come in and shoot, and then they'd head toward these trees, or if they didn't come in, they would head towards the trees, and so they were stacking up out there, and that's exactly what they were doing, is they're staging. We've talked about with dove. Dove love to sit there and just kind of chill before they make their next move. It's kind of a loafing is really what it is. And so we had birds starting from 3:30 in the afternoon that were going to these trees, and they were just sitting there. We could see, and so it was less than a quarter of a mile. Now I think about it, because we could see if they would fly down, because we could see them get out of the trees, and they were literally just sitting there doing nothing, just hanging out in the shade. And sure as hell, here it comes. So shooting light, I think that weekend was about 7:30, something like that. So I would say at 7:20, 7:21. I mean, to be exact, I looked at my phone. Here they come. We're all kind of yelling, get ready, here they come, and it was amazing. They were dive bombing this tank, and it was an absolute war. It was awesome. Okay. It wasn't Lubbock. It wasn't Argentina, but you know what? It was damn fun. It was worth the wait. And I think the coolest thing is I did actually end up limiting the first day, and we left them flying. I'm sitting there picking up my gear, and there's just nothing more exciting than just watching hordes and hordes of dove come in there. And I always say it's good luck to leave the hunt, leave them flying, and that's certainly what we did. So again, an October hunt, migratory birds, dry conditions, coming into that water source, it was phenomenal. Well, during that hunt, my dear friend who was on the hill, he was looking over towards another pasture that we own, and it's full of sunflower, full of native sunflower. Now, I hadn't mowed it yet, because quite frankly, time just got away from us. But he could see hordes of dove in this natural sunflower field. Not natural. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. We didn't plant it. In other words, a wild sunflower. There we go. And so he said, "Hey, let's see if we can go over there, middle of the afternoon for the hunt on Saturday and see if we can get into them." I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And the conditions were going to be pretty good because it was definitely going to be warmer. The wind was going to be a little bit less, which is nice. And so we said, "Okay, we'll drive. We'll take the long way, and we'll drive over there. We'll park in the shade." And it's our goal to leave the house about 2:30. So we do that, and we take our time getting over there, and we're checking other tanks and fields and whatnot while we're driving over there, and just nothing. We end up getting to this field and parking under the tree, and we stayed there for probably 2 hours just watching for dove, hoping to see, some gigantic big burst cloud of migratory dove, and we just didn't see a damn thing. It was just crazy. And again, just that's migratories. They're very unpredictable. They're like children. You never know what's going to happen. And so they ended up really not being there. That same friend of mine, he hunted that hill, and he could actually see him there in the evening. A couple hours after this, but nothing like the numbers that we saw. So, we went back to the tank, again, and then we show up, and sure enough, there's birds there. I mean, it's starting off kind of like it did on the Friday before, and it was funny because I think I started off. I had just put my mojo out, and literally put my plugs in my ears, and here they come, and I've got 3 on the ground that quick. I said, "Oh my God, it's 4:15, and I've already got 3 birds towards my limit." I couldn't do the math. I still can't, but I'm like, I'm still in the teens. I need dove here, but I'm sure as hell got a good start. So that was super exciting. And again, as it was the day before, we definitely had some birds coming in, but nothing like it was. I do contribute that to shooting that. So here we go. Okay, we're starting to see birds stack up again. I said, here they go. They're going to do it again. They're going to make that big push. Hopefully a couple minutes for shooting light. This is going to be great, and we'll start cleaning up on them. I think I had 8 in my bag at that time. So again, shooting light. I think now was like 7:31. It changed the 7:29 rather. Okay, so it got a little bit earlier. And sure as hell, here come those birds, but it's about 7:28. And it was getting dark. It was definitely getting dark. So, the shooting light there it's there for a reason. But I swear to you, it's like they knew. It was like they knew. And again, we literally shot for about a minute and a half, because we follow the rules, And again, we left them flying, but we were pissed. We're like, man, it's like they had watches. They knew. So it was really, really cool. Now, of course, in that minute and a half, we ended up taking 3 or 4 apiece. They were just so thick. But man, that is migratory dove hunting. That is what you've got. That is what you look forward to in October. Now, it can be really hit or miss, and I say that because of this. My father went back to the frac tank this past weekend. Okay, so it's been 3 weekends in a row. Again, same types of conditions, except this time we haven't had a front in about a week. Okay, so we're dealing, potentially with some stagnant birds. It's kind of a stagnant situation, really. The other thing is that it was actually hotter. Okay, and I've always said the more miserable you are as far as heat is concerned, typically the better the dove hunting, and but I never said that's going to work all the time. Well, it certainly did not work out this time. Unfortunately, my father and one of his dear friends was skunked with a capital S this past Friday. To the point where they didn't even see a dove, which is just unheard of, especially in October, especially at this place. So it happens. That's migratory dove. Again, they're fickle. They're like children. You think they're going to go here and they end up going there, but that's what makes it fun. Not really. If it was up to me and I could calculate it and get it perfect, that's what I would do. But I'm a spoiled little, when it comes to dove hunting, and I want it my way, perfect every single time. But obviously it does not work out that way. So That was the dove hunting weekend, my friends, and it was absolutely, again, just an absolute incredible weekend. Again, I encourage you, if you've got the opportunity to go hunt dove late in the season, man, you just can't beat it. You're out there in your shorts and your snake boots. Okay. If you're hunting in a, semi-cut field and it feels good out there, you're listening to your football team lose like Texas Tech has been doing lately, and it makes me very angry, and they lose enamel off my teeth. But hey, listen, man, it's fall, and God knows it's better than sitting in the damn house like we did with that stupid contravirus thing. So, again, anyways, I encourage everybody to get out there, do some late season dove hunting. It's very rewarding. Now, of course, you run the risk sometimes if you're hunting a smaller piece of property, to where, okay, am I going to dove hunt, or am I going to, I don't want to spook things too much for deer hunting. And I think that's true. I think it's a good argument. I think a lot of people will not go and hunt, smaller pieces of property in October because they're wanting things to kind of cool off for deer season. Totally valid argument. And I completely understand that. So, a little tip for you here. If you've got a good working relationship with your ranch manager, okay, or with ranch manager, with your, the guy who owns the ranch, okay, ask that person, hey, I'd like to do some dove hunting. Any suggestions? Talk to those people. They can help you find a place, maybe not even on their place, okay? So if you're hunting a couple 100-acre place and, you don't want to shoot it up, but you want to try some dove hunting, ask your rancher and say, hey, do you have any other, I was about to say colleagues, but that doesn't really work out there in the bush. You got any other, places where you could potentially dove hunt, but then connect me with somebody, maybe you can go shoot somewhere else and you don't disturb the place you're deer hunting. So again, just a thought, again, working out there, asking those types of things out there is very common. It's still kind of the good old boy system, and thank God for that. So, anyways, I'm going to be reading an article, or discussing an article rather, that I saw on the North Texas E-News. Looks to be a North Texas E-newsletter is what it is. But there's an article in here that came out on the, actually just yesterday, October 11th. And it was put out by the Texas AgriLife Extension Wildlife Specialists. I guess it's a gentleman there who has just got some tips. It's one of the PhD there named John, Tomachek. And basically he is with the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. He's really just kind of gone through here and talked about some really good tips on, getting your place ready. Now, I like a lot of Texans generally, again, we talked about several times, but, when it comes to dove hunting, I think a lot of Texans will hunt those first couple of weekends. They generally speaking use those weekends to, get their blinds ready, things of that nature. And, also use that time to fill up their feeders and whatnot. So, a lot of this has happened here, or already happened for a lot of folks. But just in case it hasn't, here's some tips from him. So the first thing he kind of talks about is making a plan, and he basically says, the more time that you sit there and you make a plan and you actually get in there and take care of your blinds and your feeders and whatnot. Obviously, that's going to save you a lot of headaches when it comes to opening day. And he talks particularly here about the insects in the blinds, and obviously if you've got ground blinds, you got to watch out for snakes. Mice are more prevalent in there too, whereas tower stands can include raccoons. Have that happen, and owls. I've had that happen too. During the season, your windows get knocked out, and oh my Lord, you go in there and there's 3 foot worth of owl droppings. Let me tell you, as a young man, I was not thin, but I did have stomach muscles, and that is from dry heaving so hard as I was told to scurry up there, boy, and clean out that blind. And boy, I earned my keep. Let's put it that way. But he talks about taking the time to to check out the blinds for damage, whether it be raccoons, yellow jackets. I've actually heard that the wasps have been really bad this year. It seems to be kind of unanimous a unanimous statement for all over the state of Texas this year. They've just it's been really really rough. Not necessarily yellow jackets yet, but a lot of the red wasps. My experience has definitely been with red wasps, but then the darn yellow jackets, which those guys, mean dudes. I typically start to encounter them really when it starts to cool down. They kind of bury themselves in the insulation of those blinds, and when it's cold outside and cold in the blind, once you get in there, you start warming up. The walls start to creak, and it. Let me tell you guys, and guys and gals, it's just not fun. In fact, my daughter has been stung. She's 2 yellow jackets and 2 bees. So both yellow jackets were in our blinds, and it's just so frustrating. So anyways, it talks about, again, kind of planning ahead. Now, kind of continuing on with the whole wasp conversation, we have found that bombing the blinds in advance don't really do a lot of good. In fact, I think it just kind of makes them mad. The other thing is bombing the blinds at noon on when you're out there is not a good time to do it, because nobody's home. So if you're gonna bomb your blinds, especially when it gets colder, I highly recommend doing that in the morning. Getting up a little bit early and, going out there right as the sun's coming up again, especially if it's cold and all the wasps are home. Throw a couple of those bombs in there, and that'll definitely take care of it. As it gets colder, however, you're probably going to need to do more. And I don't care how much you seal up your blinds, it's going to happen. It's just the way it's just the way it is. That is, unless you have a tank blind. We talked to the owner there of Tank Blind. He swears up and down that his blinds are wasp proof, and I believe it. And that's absolutely fantastic, and it's great for kids, because my little girl Abby was stung, and it was tough to get her back in there, but she's tough. Anyways, enough about the wasps. I say all this because I hate them myself too. But he goes on to one of those other categories here is, routine gear inspection. This is actually a really good point here. A lot of things I don't even think about. He's talking about from, taking care of your blinds, clothes, harvesting tools, rifles, okay, things of that nature. When it comes to routine gear inspection, I think that also, sight in your rifle. A lot of people say, I have my rifle in my case and I put it up. It's not going to be off. Baloney. There is a chance it definitely could be off, but more importantly, you owe it to that animal. And I don't care if it's a hog or a deer. You owe it to that animal to put a well-placed, deadly shot on that critter and drop it in its tracks. So I definitely think that's an important part of any get pre-season checklist, if you will, getting things done. And I need to take my own advice, actually, because I have not fired my deer rifle yet, and it is October, so I got to get that done. Also talks about things like flashlights. Okay, I tell you, that's something that I overlook, and of course, you're not going to check your flashlight until you need. And this happened to me before. Nowadays when we got the iPhones and the batteries and the backup batteries, we kind of take flashlights for granted, but you cannot beat a good flashlight, especially, God forbid you got a wounded deer out there. I think it is absolutely essential. And he kind of talks about that here, about making sure you've got a properly working flashlight, and that's for duck hunting too. My headlamp, it just eats up batteries, drives me crazy. 3 batteries every freaking time. And so I just routinely do that. Well, I need to check my light that's in my deer bag too, because, definitely need to take care of that. Let's see. What else does he talk about? Yep. So he talks about shooting your bows, shooting your rifles, making sure it's a quick, clean kill. Totally agree with that. Obviously talks about safety, for those of you who use climbing sticks, platforms, harnesses of any kind, check and make sure the rusts are there. If you're using tripods, okay, for God's sakes, make sure they're okay. I've had some firsthand experience. I wasn't there, wasn't a friend, but it was a friend of a friend who had a horrific accident off of a tripod in West Texas, and fell off a tripod. And I'm not going to go into anything about it, but it was horrific. Folks, it's something, just another reminder, when T-posts are essential, especially out, West Texas, you don't have any trees to tie your tripods down, your stands down, to keep the cattle from knocking over the wind or whatnot. But if you're going to use T-posts, which, I encourage you to do so, make sure you hammer them in at the same angles of the legs are going in. Okay. You don't want you don't want that T-post splayed out. Make it a part of the leg. Okay. I'm going to keep it at that, but we'll keep talking about that one for years to come because it's absolutely essential. He goes in here to talk a little bit more, about knives and whatnot. Okay, getting all your gear prepared. All right. We use Cutco knives. That's kind of what we prefer. They got a good big rubber handle. We like them. They got good gut hooks. We have the ones with serrated blades and the ones that are not serrated. And we actually send those back to the factory in Rochester, New York, I believe is where it is, to get them sharpened, and they take the nicks out of them, things of that nature. So, may not have to go to that type of extremes, but I definitely encourage you to do so. The other thing I'll make a recommendation for, and we really talked about this a whole lot, but have multiple knives with you. Okay, not only it's so easy to lose knives. Okay, it's like a striker for turkey hunting on the box call. You can lose those damn things so quickly. But what I like to do, hair, fur, okay, is one of the worst things for a knife. I mean, it just dulls the hell out of it. And so obviously there's going to be a part of the cleaning process where you got to cut through hair, you got to cut through fur, and obviously with hogs it's even worse because you got that iron type skin in there. Okay. So, I really, really recommend you having a good, big serrated knife that'll just chew through that hair. And again, it's going to get a little tore up. That's okay. That's why you got it. But good aggressive teeth to rip through that hair. And then of course you can use a skinner, if you will, to handle everything else. But I think that's a good recommendation. I know guys that actually have got a set of knives for deer hunting and a set of knives for hogs. Okay. Because, because the hogs are so much more difficult on the knives than the deer. So again, something to think about. And then, of course, a first aid kit, I think is absolutely essential, especially when you're out there in the middle of the nowhere. Not saying that you're going to break your leg or anything of that nature, but I think one of the more common injuries that could turn out pretty damn serious is the injuries to your hand while you're sitting there cutting. God knows what. If you ever meet me in person, look at my hands. I'll show them to you because I can go really fast, and those Cutco knives, they really work well, especially on human skin. Even though my skin is pretty hard compared to a lot of other people, but. Something to consider, antiseptic, what's that stuff that's, brown bottle and you pour it out and it bubbles and it kind of stings, but it feels good. You know what I'm talking about, whatever that stuff is. Band-aids, things of that nature. Keep that handy in case you cut your damn finger off. That would really ruin things. The other thing he talks about is read your outdoor annual. Of course, they're not doing the outdoor annual because of the damn COVID for 2020, but they have it online, and I think it's really important that everybody look at the outdoor annual online, look at your county, look at where you are, and make sure you understand the regulations. Okay, things change. It's not as clear cut as Matador County, you can shoot this and that. And there are some counties where it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. You can't shoot a doe here. You can't shoot a doe there. Make sure that you understand, what you can legally harvest and where, especially when it comes to like turkeys and stuff. Okay. Like Eastern turkeys, if you can shoot Rios during the fall, you may not be able to kill Eastern turkeys. If you're in the area that's got both, so make sure you definitely check that out. Something else we're talking about, the hunting license. Okay, yeah, gotta have a valid hunting license. I think one of the most commonly issued ticket, besides just not having your damn hunting license, is that when you harvest an animal, harvest a deer, harvest a deer, whether it be a whitetail or a mule deer, you've got to fill out the log on the back of your license. You've got to do it. And I think that I heard somewhere that was one of the most commonly missed things the past couple of years, and it is relatively new. It's definitely relative. It's a newer thing, and of course that does not apply for those of you who are hunting on the managed land deer permit ranches (MLDP) because they keep a log of that. So definitely, keep an eye on that. Obviously, the easiest way to have a ruined hunt is to not have the proper tag. Something else, talking about tagging animals. A lot of people, when it comes to securing the tag to the animal, I think a lot of people, I'm guilty of doing this. We'll just try to find, oh God, I need to find this. I need to find a piece of wire, or you go in there to the bread basket and grab the little twist tie. Go prepared, man. Take a zip tie with you, and use it that way. And I've been on a couple of ranches where they actually take the shell that you harvested the animal with, and they put the tag inside the shell, and then they actually duct tape it to the antlers, which obviously is a real foolproof way of making sure you do not lose that tag. I mean, that is absolutely essential. One thing I kind of missed here, but I think is super important is talking, especially in the early season, is coolers, ice chests and whatnot. Obviously, the Yeti boys had the vision to reinvent the ice chest, and I'm sure as hell glad they did. As I know a lot of other folks are too, because quite frankly, going into town for ice became a real pain in the butt, especially in the early season. So, if you have the means, get yourself a dedicated meat cooler, okay? One that you don't have to put the meat in garbage sacks and then delicately put the meat in there because you don't want to get blood all over the cooler. Yeah. No. Get you a cooler that you can man up with your big beard and your pure black coffee and your tobacco and cigar, and you just got John chopping wood, and you cut that deer up, you wash them out, and you throw them in the cooler, and you sell, hell yeah. And then you put a couple of bags of ice on, you're good to go. Okay. I'd say the most important thing is make sure that thing can retain ice. Okay. So the Yeti type coolers are absolutely essential. And then of course, do yourself a favor, put the damn cooler in the shade. Okay. Just because you've got one of those super insulated 8,000 pound coolers, doesn't mean that the heat's not going to get to it. So put it in the shade, and also label your cooler as well. That's helpful for any visits from the game warden or anything of that nature. And that being said, if you ever do get a visit from the game warden, you're cool. Normally they're going to be cool. Visits from the game warden, they happen. So you think, be smart. I know you're pumped, you're excited, but do yourself a favor and cooperate and work with them. They're just doing their job. That's for sure. So, anyways, this is a really, really cool little article. I'm actually pointing out a lot of good stuff. Some of the stuff I didn't even think about. So I'm going to go ahead and when we get done, I'll post this in the show notes. I think this is a good one. So, again, everybody, if you're bow hunting, if you've got any pictures, we'd love to see them. We've seen a couple already. There's shot some really nice deer so far. It'll be interesting. I'd like to hear from people how your acorn crop is doing. The red oaks here in Dallas are absolutely going crazy. The live oaks haven't, which typically it's the other way around. I mean, some live oaks are okay, but the ones I typically use to gauge, okay, how's everything going to be? They really hadn't started falling. And I haven't seen the Rancho Bandito. I know that the pecans are looking like they're going to have a good year, but the acorns are looking like just a normal year instead of a banner year like it was last year. So anyways, that is all I have today. Again, as we always say, folks, support your local feed stores. Okay. Again, when you go out and you buy, a couple of bags of feed from, your local feed store, and you get a timer and a battery and something of that nature, okay, you are making a huge hell of a difference in the livelihood of that feed store. And let's not forget, it's a trickle down effect, right? You support that feed store. That feed store is going to be able to support their local grocery store. It's a good thing. Without small towns, we as hunters, we kind of lose our identity, so we have got to do our part to help those folks, and they're working hard. I would much rather pay a couple of dollars more, and I put my money where my mouth is, folks. I would much rather pay a few more dollars to get some feed at a feed store rather than the big box store, something like Walmart. Okay, where Walmart could care less what about the corn or the quality of the corn. So. Oh, sorry, I had to, man. Whew. I'm going to wet the whistle there. So anyway, support your local feed stores, folks. It is absolutely essential. And good luck to you. Be safe, be smart, and we'll see you down the road, folks.
Thanks for listening to the Feed Bandit Podcast. If you like what we discuss on the show, be sure to sign up to our email list to get even more killer hunting ideas, tips, tricks, and exclusive deals on innovative hunting gear and services delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up over at feedbandit.com or simply by texting the word bandit to 33777. See you on the next one, and remember, support your local feed store.